Hello, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce?
Lionel.
Bruce?
Lionel!
You gotta help me here, buddy. I'm dying. I'm dying.
Are you dying?
I'm dying a thousand deaths. Yeah. You gotta help me. I can't remember for the life of me if this is the first podcast since the last podcast.
Let me see if I can look that up.
Yeah, would you look that up? Run that. Do you have a file? Do you have one of them rotary files?
Yeah, on page 694, halfway down. Yeah, it is.
Is it? Okay, we're good to go then.
Yeah, we're good to go, man.
What's news? We haven't talked because now I understand that on the podcast we probably talked last week, but in actual fact, I guess we had been conversing a little bit back and forth through the magic of social media and what have you.
Yes.
What's news?
What's news? Is this before or after Christmas? It's after Christmas.
It is. It's probably sometime in February.
Okay, well, sometime February. Well, I guess the big news is which astounded me, is that my three sons, my daughter-in-law, and my wife booked me a flight in the Lancaster out of Canadian Warplate Heritage down in Hamilton sometime later this year.
That's got to be. Do you know? That's got to be. That sounds exciting.
Oh man, they gave me the notice about it, and I literally couldn't say anything for like 5 minutes. I was just dumbfounded, and I am so looking forward to this. It's like never in 1,000 years would I imagine I'd be taking a flight in a Lancaster.
You know what you're going to need, eh?
I'm going to need my phone. I'm going to need a camera. I'm going to need an airsick bag. I don't know.
And a parachute.
And a parachute, yes.
If you're willing to fly in a plane that's almost 100 years old, you're going to need a parachute.
Well, actually, it's just over 70 years old, I think. 70 years.
1940.
I think 42 they first flew. So, yeah, we're 80 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. This one was made just after the war. So it's not quite that old. It's only 76 years old.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So that's comforting, yeah.
It's amazing how those machines... I've been amazed by the fact, this is what runs through my head quite a bit. I'm amazed by the fact that those guys back then in the 30s and 40s could build those magnificent steam locomotives and those Lancasters and Spitfires and all that stuff without any of the aids of today's technology.
Yep.
I mean,
you had a slide rule, some skills, some French curves, and a whole bunch of knowledge ciphering in your head.
What's a French curve?
For drawing curved lines when you're doing the production drawings, if you need it's a French curve is a curve that's got a varying degree of radius increasing on it, so you can join lines, and a very valuable drafting tool back in the day.
You're making that up, Scott. If you don't stop breathing, you got to stop breathing, buddy. No breathing on this show.
Yeah. But yeah, it's considering what they did, and then you consider just look at 1903, the Wright brothers first flew,
right?
And then then
basically
10 years later you got World War I going on, which advances there, and then another 20 years after that, you've got World War II, all the advances there, and then I think of my grandmother. She's born in the late 1800s in England. There was steam locomotives, and saw a man land on the moon.
Well, that's like
there's a whole range of technological change in your lifetime right there.
I know. That's like I always say, and I mean, your dad and my dad were roughly the same age. I think your dad, because we're the same age. I always say the thing that amazes me is my dad, by the time he's 23, he'd been overseas for 5 years fighting in World War II.
Yeah.
Bizarre. It's crazy. All right. Let's get down to brass tacks here. Have you ever heard of Indianapolis, Indiana?
The home of the Indy 500 and Motor Speedway and all that good stuff?
The greatest spectacle in motor racing.
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Never heard of it.
Well, this year, there's a convention going on there called the Indy Junction 2022, And the MWR is in it. That's the Midwest region. The NCR, I'm guessing, is the North. NCR, this is either the cash register. These are either the cash register.
Yeah, the cash register people or the North Central region, I think. Yeah. I'm going to bet it might be something to do with a region.
Okay. And then the
National Cash Register.
And the MCR, which is the Mid-Central region. Mid-Central region. All right. So we got this fella here named Scott Kramer, but his last name is spelled Kremer, but he claims that it's pronounced Kramer.
Okay.
So that's going to be our first question. How does Kremer become Kramer?
Because it's German.
Well, we were not talking to you yet, Scott. You're still in the green room, buddy. Well, you've obviously wandered into the studio. Scott, could you just push that microphone away from your nose a little tiny bit, please, and thank you.
Sure. How's that?
You want it in front of your mouth.
Right.
But not right below your nose.
It's not. It's down farther.
Okay. How does that sound to you, Bruce?
That sounds better.
Either that, Scott, or don't breathe. Those are your two choices.
I think I'll take the first one.
All right. You got to move it a little closer to your mouth now. You've gotten it a bit too far away.
Okay. How's that? Better?
There you go.
Beautiful.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. So, Scott, so how do you pronounce your last name Kramer?
It is Kramer.
And how did it become pronounced Kramer with with an A instead, but yet it's spelled with an E?
Well, it is my understanding. It is the German pronunciation, the typical, appropriate German pronunciation. Even when I went to Germany, I asked that very question, and that was the answer I got. And I believe a lot of people who came over here who ended up with their name being spelled Kramer, it was changed from Kremer when they came through immigration.
Oh, really?
Yep.
They did a lot of that, didn't they?
They did.
And but your family stuck with the original pronunciation and stood their ground and said,
yes,
no, it's Kramer.
It is.
All right. But I bet you have to constantly correct people.
Absolutely do. Every time I give it over the phone or everything, I have to I spell it first and then tell what the pronunciation is.
Right.
And by the way, a Kramer is a peddler.
Oh, really?
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. The person that used to go with a wagon from town to town and sell their wares.
And here's me thinking it was a character on the show Seinfeld. All right. So why are you here?
Well, I'm here to talk about the convention, perhaps why we did it and what it's going to be and how we're doing.
You sound like a very articulate fellow.
Yeah.
That's good because then you can do most of the talking and me and Bruce can just watch you.
No, that's not unusual for me.
This would be good.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So let's start with the what is it?
Well, it is a convention. It started out. Let me give you some background. How's that? Why don't we start at the very beginning?
Yeah,
Okay.
we like background.
Beginning.
We like background,
Okay.
don't we, Bruce?
Well,
this idea came about. This idea came about 4 years ago, and I've been I'm a life member of the NMRA. I've been either the president, vice president, or director in a region for the last 9 years, and I've always been concerned about the future of the NMRA. And one of those things is, what do we do to attract more people, obviously. And about 4 years ago, a number of fellows and I started talking about it, and we said, well, what if we change something? Change many things, but what if we look at a different model for a convention? And that's the way this really started. And the idea was, can we get more people to attend a convention if it isn't 7 or 8 days long, and if it's not in a downtown area? Thereby, we're cutting the cost significantly, yet still providing great value and a great experience. So about 3 years ago, I asked the gentleman who was my vice president in the region if he could start by talking to at least a couple other regions to see if they would join us in this venture. And as you said, a couple other of the regions decided that they would. And so we started off on this whole project. And Dave Kaplan was the fellow's name, and he shepherded us through the beginning of this and got it started, so on. Unfortunately, Dave had some health problems about 14, 16 months ago, and I took the responsibility back from him in, November, a year and a half ago. And we started again to put all the typical details together. How can we put together a convention that appears to have everything that you might expect at a national convention or a narrow gauge convention or the N gauge convention or any of those. We want to take the best of all of it and put it together. But most importantly, we wanted to limit it to 4 days. And secondly, we didn't want to have it in a downtown venue. So that got going real well. And then, about the early part of last year, I had another thought, and that was that I love going to Chicagoland RPM. I've gone to other RPM meets. I love those too, but I've gone to all but maybe 3 of the Chicagoland RPM meets over the years, and I loved them. And I knew that the group that put that on was not really going to be involved in continuing that, at least for the near future. So I called a young man by the name of Mike Skibby, and I said, Mike, what do you think about the idea of joining us in Indianapolis? That we put on virtually the exact same RPM event that you have had at Chicagoland, and we just put it in Indianapolis. And that's what we're doing. So we have 3 regions plus the RPM conference all together in one place, putting on what we think is a great convention.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the schedule here, and it's like, so how did you get the 3 regions to join up? Like, what was the discussion there that got those 3 regions going together?
Well, we thought it was they all agreed with the premise about the model, that trying to find a different way of doing things was important. And the other thing that I didn't mention that is important is you may remember that 2022 was the year where the NMRA National Convention was to be in Birmingham, England.
Right.
So there was going to be no national convention in the United States. And that is why we picked 2022 to do this. And it seemed like a logical thing to do, and we'd be filling a vacancy, if you will, which would give us that much more opportunity.
Okay. So you were basically thinking at the time there was going to be no national convention in North America, so you 3 regions would join yourself together and create somewhat of a larger regional convention.
Exactly right.
And now you've come up with this Indy Junction. And do you know why the RPM meet in Chicago has gone by the wayside? What's the news on that?
I'm probably not the perfect person to answer that question, but from what I know, obviously COVID was an issue over the last 2 years.
Right.
And then I think more importantly, Mike Skibby's a young man. Mm-hmm. He's got a young family. And the other people that worked with him on the previous, 4 or 5 years when they ran it, they're all younger people too. And they came to the conclusion that they just didn't have the time to take away from their family to do that anymore.
Okay.
That was one part. The other part was that the hotel we were using in Lisle decided that weddings were more attractive to them than an RPM conference. And so the prices were going up, and it was a lot more difficult to find an alternative hotel in the Chicago area.
Okay. So these guys, they didn't throw in the towel. They just kind of realized it was getting kind of beyond their capability to keep it going.
Exactly.
And then you figured that in, and then you figured, why not just link the whole thing together?
I think it's a great opportunity because, again,
it really is, yeah.
Looking back at the National Model Railroad Association, let me put another little factor out there, right? About 2 years ago, one of the fellows in my region took on a project for me, and that was to do a data analysis of our membership. And we learned a lot, but perhaps the most significant thing that we learned was that the average age of a member in the North Central region of the NMRA was 70 years old and was getting 9 months older for every 12 calendar months.
Wow.
That is simply not a sustainable model.
No. And I take it you're a huge NMRA fan. You're a life member. You want to keep the whole thing going.
There are a lot of alternatives. There are a lot of things. I mean, the hobby is still very robust. It's just fragmented. You have narrow gauge modelers, you have prototype modelers, you have people that deal with the NMRA. There are all kinds of choices. And so it's competitive. And I think that the NMRA has a lot to offer. I've enjoyed my time with it. It's not perfect, and I do enjoy alternatives like the RPM meet, but it just seemed that one of the ways we might entice more people to join the NMRA was to have more things to offer them, and certainly getting to know RPM people and having joint conferences like this seem to be one of those things.
Actually, that's a really good idea to combine the the RPMs with NMRA. So, is there separate? I'm assuming there's a separate registration for the RPM meet and a separate registration for the convention.
No, there is a website. Mike Skibby's RPM conference has a website, and if you go there, there's a pointer that will take you to our registration page, and everyone registers the same way. It's the same price for everyone, and the convention itself is built so everyone that comes to the convention can go to anything that they want to go to, whether it's an RPM issue or an NMRA clinic, for instance. They can go to anything they want. The only thing that the RPM people cannot participate in are the NMRA contests. And everything else is open, completely open. So everything is done through the Indy Junction 2022.org website. You go there, it gives a registration process, follow the directions, and it'll get you into anything you want to get into.
And so you're not really running the RPM thing separately, are you? You're kind of, like you say, one registration gets you into the RPM clinics and the RPM display rooms and all that. Just technically, if somebody wanted to display their models in the RPM rooms, the model display room, though that doesn't include entering an NMRA model contest. But I suppose if the model was good enough, they can choose, right? They can either display it in the model contest or they can display it in the RPM room.
Exactly right. There are no restrictions, other than the one I said that you have to be an NMRA member to enter the contest. But other than that, no. And to be clear, at the hotel is large, and we have significant public spaces. And as a consequence, we have a room that's probably every bit equivalent to the room that was available at Lyle for the RPM displays and the two modular layouts they've always had. So if you walk into that room, essentially you shouldn't know whether you're in Indianapolis or Lyle. It's to be the same.
Okay.
And then we have 4 rooms that are set aside for RPM clinics, and we hope to have at least 35 RPM related clinicians.
Wow.
We expect to have approximately 45 NMRA clinicians.
Holy mackerel.
Exactly. And then the other aspect is that at the RPM meets, they always had a modest sales room, if you will. Right. And we are going to have a little more than that. We are going to have a train show. We don't have 180,000 square feet. We have about 25,000 square feet. But that should be sufficient for 100 to 125 suppliers. And our intent is that the people we're inviting to be there are all going to be small to medium manufacturers who will sell their products at the train show. As much as we'd like to have people like Walthers and Bachman and others, they essentially come there to show things, but they don't sell any of their products at the show, and we just don't have the room. And that is one of the compromises we had to make. But I think most attendees will be very, very happy to see a lot of people they may not have seen before, all of whom are there to sell products.
So am I understanding that correctly? If Mike's Box Cars, which is a small cottage industry, and Walthers, you have both applications. You're taking Mike's Box Cars first because you want to try to help out the small manufacturer and the guy that's going to sell.
Exactly right.
Wow. I just had an idea, Bruce.
Go ahead.
Are you ready?
I'm sitting.
Okay. You need a pen and paper?
No.
Okay.
But I have one handy if I need it.
I'm interested in your thoughts on this, Bruce. It seems like Scott and his gang are very well organized, and I really like how their thought process is to make it affordable and fun and easy to do because it's only 4 days. It would be kind of cool if the NMRA created some sort of a guidebook. I mean, Scott, you should take all your notes and put them into a guidebook for other people to do because you're in Indianapolis, so you're not in a small town. You're in a major city where there's a lot of model railroad. It's pretty easy access to Indianapolis.
I think it is.
From a lot of places. I mean, it's only 8 hours to Indianapolis from where I am. It's not that hard to get to Indianapolis, and 8 hours in south of here. I mean, our buddy Scott Lister, he just went to a show in Indianapolis. So it's not that hard. It's a very central location. You guys should consider taking all this information and putting it into some sort of a booklet. What do you think about that, Bruce?
Any guidance that the NMRA can provide for others to follow something successful is well worth looking at. And I think that certainly the group that are in charge now at the national level would look favorably on anything they can get to help them out and help others out. I know they have convention handbooks, and that's more or less tailored to the national level, but I can't ever recall seeing anything specifically for a regional level. It's more like, you talk to the guys who did it last time, you figure out, we can do that, and you go ahead and do it and with no other real guidance. So, if there's some sort of, documentation or guidance, flow chart or something to follow, it'd be great. And the other thing, I know in the past there have been some bad blood between RPM groups and NMRA groups, but then a lot of cases you see they may not be right out there, but there have in the past been a lot of joint NMRA RPM meets or conventions. So they do coexist, and I love the idea of getting the RPM guys and the NMRA guys all together in one place, and because after all, we're all model railroaders. So if you go, if you're RPM guy, you can do that, but you also got a whole pile of other stuff you could do, and the NMRA guys, they can go see what the RPM guys are doing and maybe get some ideas and encouragement and that type of thing. So this to me sounds like a win-win-win-win situation.
No, see, I thought of it as a win-win-win-win-win situation.
Okay.
I had that extra win in there. Man, I'm looking at the schedule, Scott. This thing is jam-packed. This is 4 days.
Oh, no kidding, eh?
It's like jam-packed in 4 days. There's like a gazillion clinics. There's the model contest. There's a rail yard sale. So I'm assuming people bring their stuff to sell. It's kind of like a bidding thing.
No, it is not a silent auction. What it is people bring their models, whatever they want to sell. They put a price on it, and people will come in. If they want to buy it at that price, they buy it at that price. And when they do, a share of that, a small share of that, goes to the convention. So there are no bids.
So somebody who wants to sell has, I don't know, for argument's sake, 3 locomotives they want to sell. They don't have to sit there until they're sold. There's somebody, they just put a price on them and leave them and sign and obviously register somehow. And then there's other people looking after the cash and the sales and all that.
Absolutely. You're exactly right.
Wow. That's actually
it's a consignment sale, sort of.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're bringing it in, and you get the organizer gets a take for selling Buddy's equipment, and he can feel free to do other stuff while his stuff's being sold.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea.
And we will have security for that all the time.
All right. Will you have security if I show up?
Probably.
Yeah. You may not want to let me in. Security. Man.
And I'm looking at the list of clinics you got right now. It's an outstanding lineup of clinics you got going.
Yeah, but what about that Mike Hawk guy? Mike Hawk. What about him?
Static grass.
Yeah, I'm concerned about him. You might want to check that out, Scott.
We'll do that.
That guy's trouble. He's always trouble.
And did you get to the RPM list of clinicians yet?
I don't think
there's a link to that off of our website. It takes you back to the RPM conference, and there's a list of the people who are going, the people that are known right now that are going to be participating. Some of them already have their topics listed as well, and so that will get fleshed out a little more as time goes on.
There's a whole different list again.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a whole pile of good talks and stuff going on. It's this is one of the ones I think, we did a convention a while back, Lionel. We wanted to give people so much that I would go, I couldn't see it all. I had to make choices. This is exactly that. There's no way, I don't think, looking at the schedules, that you can possibly see everything you want to see. So you're going to have to prioritize and make some astute decisions on what you want to see and how to see it. And, that's part of the fun. I want to do this, but and away you go. And so, that's a part of fun. You got such a wide choice of activities to choose from, with the clinics and the RPM and everything else. Like, if you come out of this saying you didn't have fun, there's something wrong with you.
I'd like to think so. And we haven't even talked about the fact we'll probably have about 40 to 45 layouts for tours.
40 to 45
layouts, and about 20 to 25 layouts for operation sessions.
Wow.
Holy mackerel. Is Indianapolis kind of a hotbed of model railroading, or?
There's a fair amount there, and there are enough other towns within reasonable driving distance from the hotel to allow them to be involved as well.
What's reasonable driving distance? Like
no more than 60 minutes.
Really? There's that many layouts within 60 minutes of Indianapolis?
Yes, sir.
Well, as far as your operating ones, the operating session is always great, I think. Have you got lined up some that are sort of on the way to or from the convention for those who might want to do, like somebody who's not close but wants to be involved? He's maybe 2 hours away, but there'd be enough traffic coming from that way that'd be worthwhile for him to host a session.
That is definitely one of the things we're looking at. That's not solidified yet, but yes, that's a real consideration. Do you know Eric Smith? He's involved with the OPSIG.
I know the name. Yes.
Okay. Well, he's the one who's controlling this whole process, and he is very familiar. He's done this before. He's doing a great job. So yes, that will be part of the process as well.
Do you find it easier to do this whole thing because you guys can get together on Zoom and all those things?
Without shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. So how often do you guys meet? Like once a month or something?
It has been once a month. We are meeting tomorrow. Our next meeting will be 3 weeks from now. That will go on for probably 2 more times, and then we'll go every 2 weeks, and then we'll get right down to once a week where we get close.
And when is this convention?
The convention starts on May 18th.
Right.
And it goes through the 21st.
And how did you guys decide on that date? Was there... Okay, let's remind everybody, this goes back, the seed of this idea goes back 4 years ago.
Correct.
So was the spring convention, regional convention, kind of the norm for all the 3 regions?
It was a balance because the NCR does fall conventions. The other 2 regions, I believe, if I remember correctly, do spring conventions. And it was just a negotiation, and that's the way it ended up.
And how are registrations going so far?
Our target attendance for this is 500, right. And we're approximately halfway there already.
Wow, that's
which I'm absolutely thrilled with.
Yeah, because you'll have a lot of walk-ins, and you're still. We'll probably broadcast this sometime towards the middle to end of February, 1st of March. So I mean, and wow, that's pretty good. You're halfway there already.
We are, and as I said, I'm thrilled with that. Typically, my experience has been with NMRA conventions and the RPM. Most of the registrations come in within the last 30 to 45 days.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
And do you feel like you've done anything special to promote this convention?
We've got several people that are working the PR for this. They're doing a fabulous job. Our website was up early. We populated it with a lot of information early. We have been out to a lot of places. We've got paper things out there for people to look at and pass around, that type of thing. They're in contact with a lot of other regions. We had a 60-minute promo done that we had broadcast as part of the virtual NMRA convention last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. So that was on there like 9 times a day during that convention, and that's available other places. So, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Is that promo video on your YouTube channel anyway?
I believe it is, yep.
There it is. Is that the... No, that can't be that because it's only a minute long.
It's only a minute long.
Oh, really? Okay, all right. So I highly recommend that everybody go. So all you got to do is go to YouTube and type in Indy Junction 2022, and their Indy Junction intro videos right there. Correct. Okay, and you got a couple of layouts on there, and a day in Indy. What's that's like? Okay, so you got a lot of cool stuff on there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys find the hotel? Like, because that seems to be a real sticking point for so many people now trying to make conventions go.
You're absolutely right. It's extremely difficult. Part of our process was allowed each of the 3 regions to basically bid on this opportunity. And part of the bid was obviously having a venue. And the people from the Central Indiana Division, part of that region, came forth with this and put that up, and we said, wow, that's a great opportunity. The hotel it's a Marriott hotel. It's very, very nice. And the public spaces are significant. I mean, there's a lot of room, and we have it all. And so they came forward, and everything worked out. The room price was pretty good. It's $132 a night plus tax, which isn't bad now. I will say that one of the issues we have, and so people will hear this and hopefully understand, is that we are having a little challenge about how many rooms should be in the block. The biggest puzzle in this whole convention is hotel rooms, our hotel. The way it works is, as a convention, we make a commitment to the hotel of so many rooms. And if we don't meet 80% of that commitment, we have to pay the difference out of our pocket. Yes. So it's a challenge to make sure that we have enough rooms for everyone who wants to stay at the hotel at the convention price, as opposed to having so many in the block that we end up having to pay significant money, which realistically an organization like ours doesn't have. And so we've been a little conservative, and one of the things we'll be discussing tomorrow night is, do we need to negotiate with the hotel and increase the block, which they've been pretty good about doing, and we will do if the data tells us that's what we need to do.
I think that's what tweaked me to talk about having guidance for other conventions, because that was, a Marriott hotel is a really nice hotel. You can't go wrong with Marriott. And so, what was the process? Like, you said that the three regions kind of were bidding on it, but how much enthusiasm was there in each region? Like, was it just kind of one group of guys kind of went off and did it, and so you were kind of stuck with that? Or did you actually have two or three choices of places to go?
I would say, and I wasn't directly involved at that particular time. That's when Dave Kaplan was taking charge of that. But my understanding is the people in the Central Indiana Division really were excited and enthusiastic about this opportunity, and they put on a great thing. That is not to say that the other two regions weren't prepared to also do it. I know the North Central, we had ideas about where we could put the convention, what hotel we would use, and so on, but it became obvious quickly that the hotel in Indianapolis is really rather unique. Because the public spaces are so extensive, and it's in a suburban area, not a downtown area.
Right. So that's kind of a, you could almost do a clinic on that for future.
Yes.
You know what we got to do, Bruce? I just had a great idea. Bruce is on.
Go ahead.
You were on mute.
No. I was looking at the maps of the divisions.
Oh, okay. It would be a great idea, Bruce. If we could talk...
No, what would be a great idea, Lionel?
Is if we could talk Scott into doing some sort of presentation on an NMRA X about putting on a convention.
There you go.
I love that.
I can do that.
I love that.
We know guys.
We know a guy. We know a guy.
We know a guy.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
We know a guy that lives on a rock in the North Atlantic.
He does that. Good guy.
Yeah. How are you making it with Gordy? How much contact have you guys had with Gordy about this whole thing?
Actually, none that I'm aware of. However, I was very pleased. You're obviously familiar with the NMRA magazine and the President's Car column that's in every month.
Right.
And if you looked at the last one that just came out a couple of weeks ago, he, about 2/3, 3/4 of the way there, he said, I'm really optimistic. He said, in fact, there are going to be 3 great events here that I'm excited about it. He says, Amherst is going to be good this year, the train show and everything else. We're going to have a great convention in St. Louis, and we're going to have a Tri-Regional in Indianapolis.
Wow.
I was thrilled to see that.
I think, Bruce, as I was talking to Scott about that, will he not become known as the president, simply known as Gordy?
I think so.
I would say so. Like, won't it just be Gordy? He'll be like Cher.
I was just thinking here, our friend... Yeah, I was just thinking here, our friend Mike Deverell lives in that area.
Yes.
I hope he'll be attending.
Let's get, you got to, Mike Deverell's going to have
just getting underway on his new layout.
Yeah, he's going to just be getting underway, but you should find out, tell somebody to contact Mike Deverell because he does great videos. Mm-hmm. He'd be good as a clinician. He'll be building a spectacular layout. You got to tell somebody to get a hold of Mike Deverell.
I'm writing it down.
Write that down.
I am, right now.
It's Dever.
Yeah, and I think he's in just the southern part of NCR on the Indiana side.
Understand?
And you got some prototype like extra fare things, the Amtrak Beach Grove shops. This tour, it's already sold out, that tour.
It is. Probably the biggest problem we faced was on prototype tours because of COVID. There are a number of places that are still a possibility that we haven't advertised because they've essentially said, first of all, when we were talking to them, they said, we won't even begin to make a decision until after the first of the year. And obviously right now, with the situation with COVID, they're not going to make a decision. And so some of the places we would really love to go, they're just not available right now. And that may change. We'll all hope we get lucky here. And if we change and we are able to get some more, we will do that. Our registration system is set up so that even after people register, if we have a new offering, they will all get an email with that offering before it is open to anybody else. So even though you register early, you will never lose. Yeah, you'll never lose out of an opportunity. So hopefully more will open up. There was one Nucor, which is the steel company down there. I know it's a fabulous place. A couple guys built a huge model of the facility, and they'd love to have us, but they just don't feel comfortable enough yet to do that. So let's cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Got a lot of great layouts here too. Holy mackerel!
Oh yeah,
gee whiz. I love this idea. So now tell me a bit about your opinions of the NMRA, because you seem to me like a guy that's like, oh, I know I was going to ask you, what are you guys, now you guys have obviously got your fingers crossed about COVID and all that. Do you have some sort of, I don't know, like are you just kind of going full steam ahead and damn the torpedoes, or?
Basically, yes. We're perfectly aware of the potential of problems and so on. We're hoping that this particular strain of COVID is going to die out here fairly quickly. There seems to be a lot of sentiment about that. But nonetheless, we have to proceed the way we are. The contracts we have and so on are all provide us an opportunity to cancel if we have to for that reason. So we're being as prudent as we can. But the other thing I would say is I'm sure you're more than aware, if you talk to anybody that's putting on a train show right now or anything else, they're mobbed. People want to go out. They're going to go out.
Yeah.
And as I said, with the number of people who've already registered, that's not stopping very many people. So unless something new comes along that's really catastrophic, more than it already has been, I think we're going to be fine.
I see you got the Indiana Live Steamers. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
Okay. Man, that looks pretty cool. 13,000 square feet, 13,000 feet of track. Oh, okay. This Live Steamers layout, Bruce?
Yes.
It's 100% scenic.
Imagine that.
We got
you build it outside, you got scenery all the way.
The next time we do a fans, we got to ask Kelly if the Live Steamers layout at Medford Railroad Park is scenic. I can't even imagine the discussion that will be blossomed from that.
I'm going to write that on a sticky note. Right?
Yeah, write that on a sticky note. We got to ask Kelly if the layout is scenic. That's 20 minutes worth of. That's 21 minutes worth of, that's 20 minutes worth of entertainment right there.
At least a couple bushes for the speed trap.
Yeah. Are you doing a clinic, Scott?
I am not this time. I came to the conclusion I was probably going to be busy enough just putting out fires and being available.
So are you like the guy that's are you the guy, the main dog in this?
I am the chairman, yes.
All right. And is this your first time chairing a convention?
It is.
And what is the thing that has surprised you the most?
I think the thing that surprised me the most is the competence, willingness, and pleasantness of dealing with the people that are on the team.
Oh, okay.
It has been really wonderful. They're great people. They're giving a lot. They're doing a very, very good job. No, that's far and away been the best part.
All right, so I know you got some definite opinions about the NMRA, so I want to. Well, no, I want to talk because it was interesting when we talked last.
Sure,
and I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about that was very refreshing to hear you. So, would you say you've probably made some lifelong friendships because of the amount of contact you've had with working with people to put this convention on?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of people out there that really wanted to, like, even though it's the social media time, I think it's obviously gathering people together. But at the end of the day, I think what it's really doing is propelling people to return to the way things were run before. Like, you know, you make friendships and you're like, okay, well, let's have a convention then.
Absolutely. But I think the thing you keep in mind is, though, that times change. And the needs of people change, and what they find interesting or valuable change, and you have to change with it, or you've got a significant problem.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. And so okay. So what do you feel like? All right. Let's find out about you as a model railroader. What's your thing? What are you modeling?
I modeled the Great Northern Railroad, October 1955. In the state of Washington, between the towns of Skykomish and Wenatchee, over Stevens Pass in the Cascade Mountains.
Nice.
The layout is about 1,300 square feet. It is 38 years old.
Holy mackerel.
I guess I'm a slow modeler. I am a master model railroader. The layout is, as I said, it's all the mountains out there. The main line is about 500 feet long from staging to staging. I operate mostly diesels, but more and more steam, and I do have 160 plus feet of catenary, and I run heavy electrics. About 5,000 handmade trees on the layout, and almost all the structures are scratch built according to the drawings and photos and so on of the facilities that were out there.
So let's back up. So what number are you on as a master model railroader?
I am 667. I got mine last year.
Okay.
They asked me if I had any problem with 666. I said no, but I got 667. I don't know who ended up with 666.
And how long did that process take you? Like, when did you start? When did you get serious about becoming a master model railroader?
Well, I belong to a Friday night group of about 22 guys, and a few come and go as you would expect every few years, so it's not totally stagnant and so on. But that group's been together, I think, about 35 years, and I've been a part of it about 20. I'm, I think, the 8th master model railroader in the group.
Wow.
The first fellow got his MMR in 1984. So we didn't all get him at once. And I did the easy parts, the things that probably, you know, electrical and scenery and things like that. I had author, association official, volunteer, things that I could do through the paperwork on based on what I had done over the years. And I just kind of plodded along. And the last one was cars, which I finished a little over a year ago. And that took me, 9-10 months. I did, if you may know, you have to do 8 cars, 4 have to be scratch built. I built cars that I wanted for my layout. As a consequence, 7 of the 8 were scratch built, just because I wanted to.
Right.
And that was easy. So it wasn't anything that I pushed hard on. It was just something that came along. And
do you feel like you have to have extra special skills to become a master model railroader?
No, but I think you need to be diligent. I think you have to be reasonably disciplined, and you have to understand what is required and go about it. I think a vast majority of people can do it if they really want to, but it's not necessarily easy, and the standards are reasonably high. And so if you understand that going in and you make the commitment to do what you need to do, a lot of people can do it. I don't think it's skill that keeps people out of it. I think it's the lack of determination. Commitment.
No, I agree with you there. Is that I'm dabbling away. I've got 4 and took a bit of a hiatus. Now I'm retired and getting back at getting motive power structures and cars. But the one thing I know, if you look at what is required, and if you've judged a few contests, you'll see what's required. That by participating in the AP, you will become a better modeler. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt about it. You will become a better modeler. Your skills will improve. And, it's fun. It's a lot of people, it's for the elite. No, it's not. You're challenging yourself. You're not competing with everybody else. You're challenging yourself to do better and improve yourself.
That's right. You asked me about the layout and so on. The other thing I should tell you is that I love operations, and I do run a pretty strict and full-fledged timetable train order operation. I have a dispatcher's office. I have an agent operator's office.
Wow.
We have all the paperwork and rules and regulations.
So is there any place on the internet to see this layout?
I think there are some photos, but I'm not sure how new they are, but I don't have anything official for it now.
You don't have a Facebook page or nothing?
Not yet. I should. You're right.
You're right. But just keep the name short, will you?
Will do.
Because we got a couple of guys, Tom Jacobs and Chris Atkins. They have these big, long names, like Tom Jacobs' layout is the Reading Northern Cross Line on a cloudy day. And
mine is simply Great Northern Cascade Modelers.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You need to have a Facebook page.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
You absolutely must. This is something I was talking to our buddy Don Iris about. The average Don. Wait till you hear this, Bruce. This is what I've come up with. He's the average Don.
Uh-huh.
He was involved in organized crime, but he was never really that interested. So what he runs is a string of crooked laundromats in Jersey.
All right.
And when you get to the rinse cycle, they quit and it won't finish your laundry until you put in more quarters.
Oh, there you go.
I thought I'd get a better reaction. I really did.
I'm chuckling.
That's the first time you've ever heard that. That's the first time you've ever heard that. All right, never mind. I'm
envisioning this. I can see a string of laundromats going on, and hey, it'd be a shame if some of them had laundry.
Yeah. So you absolutely need to have. You need to utilize the technology so people can know about it. Because that description you gave, there was a lot of information in there. You got a 1,300 square foot layout. What is it called again?
It's the Great Northern Cascade Modelers.
And why did you end up? I'm assuming you're a lifelong Michigan guy, or were you born in the Northwest?
No, I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
If you have 5 minutes, I'll tell you probably one of the more interesting stories about why Great Northern you'll ever hear.
All right. Bruce and I are very much interested in your story. However, and Bruce will back me up on this, we'll determine if it's interesting.
Yes. You tell the story, we'll cast judgment.
Yeah.
Okay. My father was born in Joplin, Montana, which you may recall about 6 months ago, there was a great big Amtrak wreck out in Joplin, Montana.
Yeah.
It was on the Great Northern Line, which is about 10 miles south of the Canadian border. And he was born on a homestead out there in 1916. Eventually his family moved to Great Falls, and then he went to the University of Minnesota and then came to Detroit. He married my mom, and he took a job in Detroit. And in August of 1945, my mom and dad decided to go back to Great Falls, Montana to see his parents because my mom was pregnant with me. She was about 3 months pregnant. So they took the train to Chicago, and then they got on the Great Northern Empire Builder. They had a compartment in the next to last car in the first section of the Empire Builder. There being two sections because it was a lot of traffic back in August of 45. So they went along, and it must have been about the second day. It was about 7 o'clock in the evening, and the porter supposedly came to their room, and my parents were playing cribbage, and my mother had a lifelong love of playing cards of all types. And he said, "May I make up your berth?" And my dad said, "Why don't we go back to the club car, the last car, and have a nightcap and go to bed?" My mom said, No, it's way too early. Let's play some more cards, and then we'll tell the porter when we're ready. And they said, okay, and that's what they decided to do. It was about 20 to 30 minutes later when they came around a curve in a town called Michigan, North Dakota. And they had a recurring problem with the bearing on the tender of the steam locomotive on their section. And it happened again. And their train came to a stop. Well, the conductor didn't have time enough to get to the rear of their train far enough. And apparently the station agents hadn't been checking the spacing between the two sections of the train. And the second section was going 45 miles an hour when it ran into the rear of their stopped train. Their train was pushed 500 feet down the track. My parents said that we were thrown all over the compartment. The table went into my mother's abdomen. And when the train stopped, my father told me that he struggled out, went to the rear of their car, which was up at an angle, opened the door, and the front end of the steam engine is what he found from the second section. If you see pictures of it, the sides of the observation car were absolutely split right off the car. 34 people were killed, 310 people were injured, the worst wreck in the history of the Great Northern Railroad. Now, why is this important at all? Well, obviously because I'm here, because they didn't get killed in that. But I never heard that story until I was 24 years old. I had been modeling the Great Northern for 5 or 6 years by then, and they told my wife. I never knew that. And so when people ask me, why did you model the Great Northern, I just tell them it was fate.
Fate, yeah. Something pushed you towards it.
Yep. And if I had my mom's love for cards, they would have been back in that car and never made it.
Wow. What do you think, Bruce?
I'm looking at a picture of that right now, and holy cow.
That was a pretty interesting story.
Like the locomotive is filled the rear car totally. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I never saw any of those photos until after my father told me that story.
So what do you like? Had you just kind of heard it and saw it in pictures or something, or?
They just were talking about. I don't know why they told my wife at the time. I said I was 24 years old by then, but they just told her that.
But you'd already been modeling it for 5 years. Like what?
Yeah, just because I got interested in the Great Northern. I went to the hobby shop when I was young, and I traded my Lionel stuff in on HO, which was a mistake, except it got me into HO. And what I bought was a Varney F3 in Great Northern simplified orange and green, and that started it.
You have got to have a Facebook page or a website. There are so many people out there. I was just having this discussion with Don Iris because he has a great group of guys he hung out with in the north up around in Connecticut and all that area and Rhode Island with his buddy Mark Herrick and I was saying Bruce, I was trying to describe there's all these little groups all over. That's the way model railroading has been up until just recently. All these little groups that were never connected, and all these guys. So how did this group that you've been a part of, this Friday night group, what is it, an operating group or a model building group?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called the Midnight Pocatello Yardmasters.
Okay.
I honestly don't know how they got started because, again, it's every bit of 35 years or more. We operate a fair number. We've had a fair number of operational layouts, although we've lost a few in the last few years. And sometimes it's operations, and sometimes it's going over to help people with their layouts. Some modelers don't want help. Some are welcome to help. So it varies. But we typically have met up until COVID. We meet every single Friday night, except for things like Christmas and New Year's. Sure. And, it's a great group of guys.
So you're going to have to describe your layout to me again, because you went through that pretty fast. So you're modeling the Great Northern.
Correct.
It's in 1,300 square feet, and you have your timetable and train order. Why timetable and train order? When did you start doing that? Was that because of Tony Custer, or was that on your own? You were already doing it?
I'm going to name drop here. Did you ever know Jack Ozanich?
Never. Oh, yes. Never met the man.
Okay. Well, again, I'm about almost a 2-hour drive from Battle Creek, where Jack had his layout, and I was lucky enough to go to Jack's layout probably 12, 14 years ago, and it didn't take too long. And for much of the year, I was over there about every second or third week. Okay. And Jack, people who know timetable train order, I can't believe that was ever a more authentic timetable train order operation than Jack's. He was pretty famous. And I love the guy. I mean, he's one of we lost him a couple years ago, and he is one of the big people in my whole lifetime. He was just fantastic. He had a reputation for being, let's say, cantankerous. You could get really, really chewed out. And timetable train order sessions at his layout started not 1 minute later than 10 o'clock in the morning, and they lasted until not 1 minute earlier than 6 o'clock at night. There were no breaks. You worked the whole thing. And everything you did there had to be as close to what the real world was like as Jack could ever make it. But he was an incredible teacher, and I just learned to love it. So that's what I decided to do with my layout. I guess my favorite story was that it was fairly near the end, and his layout is a single-track main line set in Maine and so on. And there is a town about halfway through the main line, and it's where a branch line goes down to a lower level. And I had a train that for his layout was unusually large. I think it was 36 cars. So I come around this peninsula, and I come into Rangeley River. And I know that number 6, which is one of the streamliners, is coming my way. It's on the timetable. So I figure, what do I do? Well, the small yard there is jammed, so I can't put cars there. So I look at it, and I thought, okay, I went up the main line because the branch line came off the main line. So I parked as many cars as I could before the initial turnout and the turnout to the branch, pulled the train forward, and I backed it all the way down. Then I set both turnouts for the siding, and I was in the clear. And I figured, I'm in pretty good shape. A few minutes later, Jack comes walking around the aisleway. He stops. What in the blankety blank are you doing? You blankety 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 blank. And he goes on a literal 10-minute tirade. And there's not another person visible at this point, but I can hear the chuckling in the background. And I finally managed to get into a word and explain what I did. And I have to be fair, because Jack would really, really get on top of any of the people that were there who were professional railroaders, either current or retired. They had no grace at all. But for somebody like me, who's an amateur, he would growl at you if he thought you really should have known something and you made a mistake. He'd get pretty upset with you. But if it wasn't that way, he'd grumble a little bit, and then he would teach you. And he would really do a great job of that. So I said, here's what I did. And Jack said, well, you should have put a flagman out in front to tell number 6 that there was going to be a problem, and then you should have split your train at the station so the passengers could walk through to the station. Don't ever do that again. I said, okay. And we went on, and it was fine. Those types of things never bothered me at all, although it's pretty famous that a lot of people would never go to Jack's because of his demeanor.
I have a story about Jack's place.
Well, I left that, it was fairly near the end of the day. So I got in my car about 6:15, and I do my 2-mile drive, and I was only home about 10 minutes. And the phone rang, and it was Jack. And Jack spent 10 minutes apologizing to me. And people said they'd never heard him apologize to anybody. And I kept telling him, Jack, you teach. This never bothered me. I never took it personally. I know why you did it. I learned. So what? No big deal. And that was great. And that's the way Jack was. But I've done my railroad will never be what his was in terms of timetable trainer. But I try. Well, I try hard.
Yeah. That's why
I had a similar experience with Jack where I screwed something up totally. He comes out and he's going upside down with this. He's smiling all the time, right?
Yep.
Then he says, "Here's what you should have done, kid." But he was a great guy. He knew a lot. He was willing to teach a lot, and the couple times we were there, we had a lot of fun running as a railroad.
Now my story is very simple. All I know is I'm glad I was standing beside Jack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a story about that people have heard several times. But it's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. Is all I know is I'm glad I was standing beside Jack. And then one time, he couldn't get his tractor started. And I said, and I had worked on a farm all through high school. And I said, I can take a crack at getting that started. And I got it started for him. And I couldn't do no wrong for a while.
Oh, I bet.
That was the same day.
Was it the same day?
It was the same day because I had my tail between my legs. And you kind of said, come with me. We'll work on his tractor. And we got it going.
Yeah. Anyways, our short version of our story is we were out on the 7.5-inch gauge railroad, and for some reason or other, Jack and I had gone to the end of the siding where the firewood was. We walked, and we were walking back, and as we were walking back, we were halfway back, we heard this tremendous crash. And all I remember thinking to myself is, thank God I'm standing beside Jack.
Yeah, I can understand that.
All right, so I need more details about this layout of yours. Where can people... oh, my goodness gracious. See now, Scott, we're going to have a conversation about the NMRA, but first, before we go on, I'm going to chew you out because you could be doing the hobby a great favor by allowing people to see it somewhere on the internet.
I'll see what I can do. Seriously.
I am serious. Well, I'm serious, too. Am I serious? You tell him, Bruce, I'm not kidding.
He's not kidding.
No, I'd like to do that. And, I haven't tried to hide it. I mean, I've got so many other things to do. But the layout, the good news is the layout physically is nearing completion. I probably have about another 8 or 10 structures to finish, and then
so you're a master model railroader. Before this is over, I want you to text me a picture of one of your structures.
Let's see what I can do about that.
Yeah. You must have pictures on your phone, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Text me one right now while we're talking. You know how to work. You know how to pick out a picture and text it to me right now while we're talking.
I can see if I can do that or not.
Well, you can keep talking. And do you know where your pictures are on your phone?
I'm trying to find them.
Do you know how to text?
I can do that. Yeah.
All right.
This is usually where I have my wife around because she's such an absolute guru in all this stuff.
Oh, is she?
I'm looking for. Yeah, she really is. What I'm trying to do is find a photo. I know it's on here somewhere of the Wenatchee station that I scratch built and finished late last year.
How much do you think it's 37 years old, so you started this layout roughly in 1985.
Yep.
What is the control system on your layout?
Digitrax. Now, Digitrax duplex.
What's a duplex?
Well, the original Digitrax was simplex. In other words, it only commuted in one direction. Now, the duplex system, the handheld unit talks to the system, and the system talks back to the handheld unit. So you can do some things you couldn't do before.
Okay. Do you find
not a big deal?
I find Digitrax complicated.
Aren't they all complicated until you get used to them?
Yeah, it's true, but yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Somehow I just don't have any luck with Digitrax. I should concentrate more. Maybe I'll get an invite to your house.
You're invited to my house anytime you want to come.
All right. So we got some time left, and I know you have a lot of real definite opinions about the NMRA, and I want to have that discussion because Bruce is always interested in NMRA discussions. And,
I'd like to do that too.
All right. So what I vaguely remember of our discussion when, how do you like that headset? How's it working?
Great. It's incredible.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
I hope you tell everybody you got it from. Now, have you ever listened to the podcast?
I must admit I haven't, but I will now.
All right, attaboy. Well, how did you find out about it? Was it Fred that told you about it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, say hey, hi, Fred. Thanks for getting him on here, buddy. So yeah, you got to listen. Now you got the unofficial AML headset. You got to listen.
I absolutely will. I really mean that. I mean, it's just I live a very, very busy life, and I do a lot of things.
Are you still working, or are you retired?
No, I've been retired for 14 years.
Give me all right. What did you do today?
What did I do today? Most of it was convention stuff.
Okay.
I had some contracts I had to sign and so on. I worked my professional life was working for what was Detroit Edison, the power company here in the Detroit area.
Okay.
And I'm an engineer by education, but after 6 years, I went into procurement, and I am managing procurement for all the generating facilities for the company, both fossil and nuclear. I spent 20 years in the nuclear business.
Wow. Is that why your hair glows?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so let's get down to this NMRA discussion because I want to hear you had some very definite opinions, and I know that will make for a great discussion. So I'll start. I don't believe that the average age goes up by 9 months every year. I think that's somebody's done some goofy math. Because no,
we were careful. The people that did this study. Now, my statistics were simply in the north central region.
Okay.
I couldn't find it, and I was hoping I could, but there was a gentleman who did it on the national level about 2 years ago, and his data was very, very similar. Not exact, but very similar to what we found. Whether it's 6 months or 9 months, the real point is that the average age isn't getting any younger. The average age is getting older. And here's a piece of data that you might find fascinating, and that is if you go back and you look in, I think, 1960 or whatever, the average age in the NMRA was 35.
19 when?
In about 1960.
Really?
The average age was 35. And it really didn't change drastically until probably in the 80s. And then it started to go up. And as I said, right now, the average age in the north central region, our region has about 700 members. Our average age is over 70.
But don't you think that, like I was thinking of that the other day, Bruce, I don't know if I said this to you or not. I was watching the news the other day, and I was watching the politicians that are in Washington, and they're all like 100 years old. And I'm thinking, people that belong to stuff and do stuff are generally older. So it's not really a representation of the hobby, is it?
Not directly, but The real problem is that if it's still getting older, what's the end game?
Yeah, but I don't think the hobby's getting older. I think the
No.
NMRA is getting older.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. And that's one of my concerns. And that's one of the reasons why I had ideas that I would love to see changed. It's one of the reasons behind this whole convention. I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about is that the registration for this convention is $95,
Okay.
which I think for 4 days is pretty doggone reasonable. But here's the other part that's good. You could bring your whole family for an extra $25.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's a great idea.
You can bring your wife, your 2 kids, and it only costs you $25.
Okay, well, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So you can bring the whole family for an extra $25.
Right.
So registration, if you're an individual, hang on, let's see, I'm going to go to registration. If you're an individual, right now, between January 1st and April 27th, and this has been broadcast, like I say, this will probably be broadcast around sometime in March, it's $95.
Correct.
After that, it's $110. Why does it go up $15 after April 27th?
Because we'd like to have as much tied in so we can plan around it as possible without going to the very last moment. We're just trying to incentivize people to help us with.
Okay. I really like that idea, Scott. You speak up. I like people that speak up, especially on the podcast. I really like that idea, Bruce, of him doing an NMRAX.
I think it'd be great.
I think it'd be a really good idea. Okay, so all right, so for $95, but then if you're a guy whose wife and 2 kids want to come along, it's only going to cost them another $25.
Correct.
That's a good idea. I like that idea.
And
That's
also
idea.
remember that compared to, quite honestly, the National Convention, there's no charge for layout tours. There's no charge for op sessions. There's no extra charge for the train show. That's all included.
I think that's important that we didn't that we skipped over that. That it's the layout tours, everything else. $95 includes it all.
Yeah. The only thing that extra is, for instance, those extra fare tours that you looked at, because one of those includes a bus, and there is a charge to enter some of the facilities as well. That's the only reason. But other than that, basically everything else is included.
And if you want to go Saturday only, it's $40.
Yep.
Okay. So, you know what? Have you guys done anything in relation to keeping track of the age of your registrars? What is it? What are they? Registry? What are they, Bruce?
Yeah.
Registrar.
I don't
Registration.
remember if that is a piece of data that we collected or not. I don't think so, but I'm not positive.
Okay, so what are we going to do about this, the NMRA getting so old? What are we going to do about it?
Well, first of all, is recognize it.
Okay.
I mean, we should just flat recognize it. And then we should be more honest about what really has value to our members. The NMRA continues to try to sell things that sound good, but in reality don't pan out. I would like to have, for instance, one of the ideas I had was, I don't know why anybody, since we don't have almost anyone under 35 years of age as a member, I don't know why we should charge them more than $10 a year to be a member. Doesn't include the magazine, but just to be a member of the NMRA. Go to division meetings, go to convention, do whatever you want, do everything else a full-fledged member does. Charge it $10. I mean, that's probably less than the actual incremental cost of having an additional member. I mean, the only thing we pay for is the administrative cost of dealing with their membership and probably a little bit due to insurance costs. That's the only real actual incremental cost that applies to a new member.
How about we compromise? How about $19.95 for anybody under the age of 35?
That's okay.
I like
and by the way, if you're in the North Central region, you know they have the Rail Pass membership.
Yes.
That's $19.95. Our region pays half of that.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We decided that we weren't doing that much with our treasury. The best thing we could do to help get new members was entice them by making that as low a cost as possible. So we decided that we would pay half of that. And that's what we do. So if you're a Rail Pass member in our region, you get 3 free months, then you get 9 months as part of a Rail Pass. That means you get a whole year and it costs you $10. That's it.
So Rail Pass, you get 3 free months and then you get another 9 months?
Well, anybody can come up. The rules of the organization are you can go to any meeting 3 times.
Okay,
After that,
right,
you're
right.
not supposed to. Remember the 3 strikes and out thing and so on
Right,
for
yeah.
various reasons. So those 3 months are free. And then you buy your rail pass, which is good for 9 months, and that makes a total of 12 months.
Oh, okay. I like that idea. What do you think of my idea, buddy? Bruce, anybody under the age of 35 is $19.95.
If it would get them in and involved at a younger age, I don't mind that at all.
That's a very good point you're making there, Scott. That it would be interesting to know just how many members are under the age of 35. You're probably right. It's probably insignificant.
It's probably a couple hundred right now.
Yeah. It's hardly anybody. So how would we circumvent the people that have already joined at the full rates? Like, somebody that's 28 years old, what would we switch them over to the 1995?
Yeah.
Okay.
Recognize this as a change and accommodate it. Exactly.
I like that idea. I think we've come up with an idea.
So here's another one for you. And I brought this up probably 6 or 8 years ago. Do you remember when White River took over the magazine?
I do.
And when they took over Craftsman?
Right.
This was just prior to that, okay? Because my idea is now more complicated. But my idea at the time was that I became aware of the fact that going back 6 or 8 years ago, that what the NMRA was charging members for the magazine didn't pay the full freight. And what the NMRA did was to take a significant portions of the train show to pay for the extra costs of the magazine. And so in a way, that was charging all the members of the organization to facilitate getting a magazine for a portion of the membership. I just didn't think that was right.
You don't have to convince me. I'm on your side on that one.
So my idea at the time was, I may be wrong, but what I understood was that there was somewhat of a disagreement between the NMRA and specifically Calmback, and that was generated because the NMRA started taking advertisements in their magazine. So they became a competitor. Okay, I may be completely wrong on that, but that was part of my understanding. In any case, what I was trying to push at the time was get rid of the magazine and buy 8 or 10 pages out of Model Railroader magazine and use it for NMRA business. The beauty of that is the Model Railroader is the magazine that all the newcomers to the hobby go to first. So that would give the NMRA far more publicity every single month than anything else we've done. And you might have a better chance of getting younger people or new people into the NMRA.
What do you think of that idea, Bruce? Okay, Bruce, this is a good point to because I think Bruce, you and I would probably disagree on the validity or the value of the NMRA magazine, wouldn't we?
I think we do. I think a differing opinion than you. I think it does have some value, but I don't think you should be competing against the commercial ones. And I mean, there's the problem. Like, how do you fund then the magazine if you're not bringing in advertising income? But then again, the NMRA does advertise in Model Railroad and the other magazines. So
it's not a simple solution. It's a difficult question. But I don't know if did you see what's going to happen with the digital magazine?
What's going to happen? Like, what do you mean what's going to happen?
Well, the NMRA has now announced that there's going to be a digital copy of the magazine. But by and large, what's happened is everyone now is going to have to pay a minimum of $68 to be a member of the NMRA. Before, you paid $50 and you didn't get the magazine, and a lot of people didn't get the magazine. But now they will all have access to the magazine whether they choose to or not, but the dues are now $68. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think my understanding is they haven't quite figured out what the costs are going to be on that. But I do know you will have an option. You can get print or digital, and there'll be savings if it's digital. And that those who now get the magazine will be paying less. Those who don't will get more, but then they'll be getting something included in their membership.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the dollar, if you get the printed copy and so on, or maybe it's printed and digital, I think it's $92 a year now. And those numbers are published.
Yeah, right now it says classes of NMRA membership, a member with magazine subscription as of 2020 is $82 per year.
Is it 82? Okay.
And without the magazine, it's $50 per year.
That's currently right now. Right.
So now it's going to go up. But it's
It's
going to
gonna
go
go
up and it's going to go down. Because the $82 a year is going to be abolished. So
Yes.
that's going to go down. But you're right. The basic cost is going to go up.
If you are willing to take the digital copy only, it will go down to $68.
Right.
If you want the printed copy, it's going to go up.
Right. So
But the bad news is that the people who didn't get the magazine at all and didn't want the magazine will have no choice this time. They will have to get the digital copy, and they will be charged $68 for it.
Right. So have you expressed your opinion to Gordy?
No, I haven't. I have a friend who's on the national board, and actually he was just down at Cocoa Beach, and my first opportunity, he just got back. I'm going to talk to him about it.
What's your friend's name?
Bill Neal.
Okay, I was just at Cocoa Beach, but I was only there for like 4 hours.
Gotcha.
I took Mike Peterson of Iowa Scaled Engineering, which is in Colorado.
Yeah, we're in discussions with him right now to get him at our train show.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Mike Peterson, and it's with an E. Peterson with an E. Mike Peterson, yeah, I highly recommend you go to this convention. But you know what my never-ending fear is with those guys, Iowa Scaled Engineering, located in Colorado, is that one day they're going to decide to move the operation to Arkansas, and then it's going to become Colorado Scaled Engineering in Arkansas. Has me somewhat.
Could be.
Yeah, sometimes waking up in a cold sweat. Okay, so what is your you got a guy that's 52 years old. He's been a member of the NMRA for several years. What are we going to tell him now that it's gone to $68? Like, what is your solution to that problem? Is your solution to put it in a magazine, or is it, because that's probably not an easy sell to get it into the magazine, because for some strange and peculiar reason, and Bruce, I'm very interested in your opinion on this too. For some strange and peculiar reason, the NMRA seems bound and determined to have a magazine that's similar to both Model Railroader and Railroad Model Craftsman. And I don't understand why the NMRA is so desperate.
And I don't understand that either. I understand in the past that, things different, but it is a venue for members to work on their author AP if they want to do that. But it's like they're trying to compete with the commercial publications who, frankly, do a good job at it. But but I can see why they're accepting advertising and stuff to try to. I in a nutshell, it should be. Here it is. It's NMRA business only, so it'd be. Instead of all the other stuff that we're seeing in there, I can see them, articles plugging conventions and convention layouts and stuff like that. But don't try to compete with the other guys. Stick to NMRA stuff, and don't be trying to compete with MR and RMC because they're or even Model Railroad Hobbyists, because they're out there doing it commercially, and I think doing a bit better job than what the NMRA magazine is doing.
I don't understand. Scott, I don't understand. I don't understand what they need $50 a year for.
Well, that's the words right out of my mouth, because my problem is I don't understand why the price needs to be where it is, and I really think that you have to look at it more as a business. And if you're running a business and you can't sell it, then you got to do something different. And if you can't find something that, despite all your efforts, that you say has value and your customers don't value, I don't see where you have any choice if you want to continue to exist but to cut your price.
All right, let me ask you this question. How important to the hobby do you think the NMRA is?
I think that the fundamental parts of the hobby, the biggest one was probably standards. And the fact of the matter is, at this point of the game, the vast majority of the standards have been determined. And even the ones that are more electrical in nature, like the that applies to DCC and so on, by and large, those are set so they work for everybody. And I think there's evidence some evidence recently that not everybody's even following all the connectors and everything else, that they've gone some separate ways. The other thing, the reason that people join the NMRA and its real value is socialization. They want to go to division meets. They want to go to regional conventions. They want to do those things. That's where the real value is. I think that overwhelms everything else that the NMRA currently has to offer. And so recognizing that, they have to do everything they can possibly do to make that as easy and as cost-effective as they possibly can. And certainly that's one of the objectives we had out of this whole convention. You come to here, you should be able to find lots of things that you want to learn about that are good. You're going to say, I had a great time and I learned a ton, and it didn't cost me a lot of money. And I was going to save this to the end, but let me give you our little sales pitch, okay? And that is, it essentially is this. If 4 days of a suburban convention, which includes basically everything you could imagine, including the potential to go to 32 different clinics, that's how many time frames that are available, all kinds of layout tours, op sessions, everything else. If you compare that to what it costs to go to a 7-day convention in a downtown area, well, there's about a $1,300 difference. And that means you either take $1,300 home in your pocket, or you go to the train show and spend that $1,300 on other things. So is 4 days ugh for you? Do you really need 7?
Do you really believe it's a $1,300 difference?
It's 3 days at $250 a day night in a downtown hotel. It's 4 more days where the downtown hotel costs $100 more than the hotel we have in the suburbs. And it's 7 days of $30 for parking that we don't. Our parking's free. That adds up to $1,360.
Yeah, hotel parking, can be expensive.
Yeah,
you're right. Like having it downtown. Your job here is you're going to get to use this headset twice, because your job here is to keep track of everything that happens, and we're going to have a debriefing somewhere down the road before this calendar year is out, and by then you'll have got yourself at least a Facebook page for your layout, and I'll be able to see some photos.
I'll try.
And there's not too much to it. Do you know anything about Facebook?
Oh yeah, I'm on Facebook most every day. There are a lot of good things that are available in it.
All right, Bruce. Can you hold me back?
Okay.
Hold me back. You're on Facebook every day.
Mm-hmm.
You have this spectacular layout. I bet you any money it's a spectacular layout. I just can sense that it's a spectacular layout. You're on Facebook every day. It would literally take you 15 minutes to start a page and post a few photos. It would literally...
We'll try. I'll do it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it would. People would love it. And before you know it, you'd have like 500 people following you, and you'll be saying the same thing to me that Tom Jacobs and Ralphie Boy Renzetti said to me. That's a really good idea, because I talked those two guys into doing it too. Because people want to see your stuff. That's the great thing about it. And there is so much stuff on this. On your schedule. Like there's layout tours every single day from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. There's operating sessions on 4 of the 5 days from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Yep. And note on that all the layout tours and op sessions are you drive to them yourself, no buses. Right. And the reason we did that was for those of us, most of us all gone on something where they're bus tours. You get 15 minutes of the layout. That's maybe the last time you ever see that thing. This way, you go to layout. If it's not what you want, you can walk out politely. But if it's something you really want to stay and learn from, you stay there an hour.
Exactly.
We just think that's a whole better model.
It's a much better model, for sure. But, some people like the buses too, because, they're not, they're not confident enough to drive around. But I think a big part of it will work for you guys is you're not starting from downtown. There's nothing. It's very hard to do a self-guided layout tour in a big city when you're starting from right downtown. So, I mean,
you're right.
What makes it a lot easier, and Indianapolis is particularly easy to get around because it has that circle freeway all the way around it.
And we're right off of that at the hotel. By the way, the other thing in which you already commented on, notice that all the layout tours and op sessions, hopefully all of them will be between 12 and 6, daylight hours.
Yeah. And
I mean, we might have one or two that we're going to sneak into the evening simply because the people work and cannot do it during the daylight hours, but we really don't want to do that.
And so how do people sign up for these operating sessions?
That's going to be Eric Smith is going to take care of that. They will all get messages and so on, and he will facilitate that whole situation. He's done it a lot of times.
It says here, we will be working with local layout owners to host operating sessions for Indy Junction 2022 attendees. Registration for these operating sessions will be restricted to Indy Junction 2022 participants. Okay, let me ask you this question. Are RPM folks allowed to go to the operating sessions?
Absolutely.
Okay, see, Indy Junction. So on RPM guys, the only thing they can't do is enter the NMRA contest if they're not an NMRA member.
That is exactly right.
Okay. Using an authorization code that you'll use at the operating-sessions.com. More details will be provided closer to the event. If you have an interest in participating, you can speed up the process by creating your own account now at operating-sessions.com. You can also browse the layouts that are currently part of Central Indiana Railroad Operations, CIROPS, Central Indiana Railroad Operations. Some of which you will host sessions during. Okay, cool.
And we have about 100 people so far have signed up for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are, see, this is the kind of thing. See, I understand where you're worried, but it's also really what we have to do is just find more Scott Kramers to get out there and make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Boy,
I think you want to have to do it. You have to be willing to put in the work to do it, and you have to care.
Boy, I bet it'd be great, Bruce, if we could see pictures of his layout on the internet by going to his Facebook page.
It sure would.
I wanted to. So, what about you? Said you have a dispatcher. What did you say? You have an operator's room?
I have an agent operator's desk, and I have a dispatcher. They're in different rooms.
Okay, so this started. You first visited with Jack 12 or 14 years ago. So before that, how did you operate? Just
my Friday night group was pretty much most of it was Mother May I dispatching,
right?
And then traffic control was a either a 1-for-1, drop a boxcar, pick up a boxcar,
right,
or a printed out switch list, computerized switch list.
Right.
Very few people had a timetable. No one had train orders. It was pretty simple, but that wasn't unusual for the day either.
Isn't there a lot of paperwork with train orders and timetable and train order?
Primarily for the dispatcher and the operator. Somebody has to, this. So the dispatcher just reads off, and the operator writes the train orders and posts them. Yeah. And my operator has he controls the train order boards at each station. So when he's instructed, he'll flip the switch for a red board and then write the orders out, complete the orders, and then when they're ready, he takes them out and posts them where they need to be posted on the layout.
So how many years after you were at Jack's, how many years did it take for you to convert to timetable and train order your own layout?
Not too long. Just a few years, although it took me more time to install the full phone system, the train order boards and the mimics, and get the operator's desk in place. Just all that took some time, and that was probably done about 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say.
I don't really like copying down train orders when I get to the station.
It's not for everybody.
No, it's not. I like, although I admire.
Well, if you're a crew, you don't have to. You pick up the train order.
You pick up the train order. That's all you do. Here's the thing, gentlemen. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful layouts out there that are busy layouts. They have multiple yards, and they have maybe even double track main line, and their whole thing is to run a lot of trains and have a lot of traffic and fun. They may or may not switch a lot of things, but that's the way it is. My layout, the real layout, it's a single track mountain railroad. And I could think it would be pretty boring to do the really, really simple operating things. Timetable train order demands that you think. You have to be aware of the schedule. You have to understand your train orders. There are some rules that apply. You need to know when you put your flagman out, those types of things. I mean, it was the real railroad. And so even on a simple railroad, I think it gets to be pretty interesting. I had a bunch of guys in, when was it, last October for an operating session. It's one of these things with, you're probably familiar with ProRail. They were here for ProRail. And,
Okay.
They were busy on a real simple layout. And I think we ran on average about 12 or 14 trains. And after 7 hours, they were still busy. 7 hours. And we only ran like 14 trains.
Right.
There was a lot of work for the 2 yards that are on the layout. And everybody had a good time.
Yeah. Not everybody knows a ProRail. That's a bugaboo of mine. That's a real bugaboo of mine. Is that there's a lot of, and there's no way to accommodate everybody. And people don't know about ProRail. Hardly anybody knows about ProRail. The only people that know about ProRail are the people that do ProRail.
Yeah, you're right.
And part of the problem with this hobby, one of the things that this podcast does, I am now convinced, some 7 years later, even though you've never listened to it. One of the things I'm absolutely convinced that this podcast does is it's very inclusive of people of all abilities. Mm-hmm. I always compare it to, I played hockey as a kid. I played hockey well up into my adult life, 40s and 50s. And I played hockey just like the guys, just like Sidney Crosby and Bobby and, Gordie Howe. I played hockey. Yeah. I just wasn't as good at it as those guys, but I was playing the same game. Mm-hmm. And whether you make it to the NHL or you never get out of playing pond hockey, you're still a hockey player. And I think one of the things this hobby needs to try to do is be more inclusive of folks that aren't necessarily have the ability to become a master model railroader.
Oh, I agree with you.
And that's one of the ways the NMRA could desperately improve, which kind of goes back to our discussion of, if it was, like, my personal feeling is it's 1995. Mm-hmm. For all you get for that is a membership card and access to the website, but then you sell it as we all live under the same umbrella. Yes, you don't get much, but we're all under this umbrella. This is our tent. This is where.
And if the NMRA really thinks that there's other things that are of value, then price them out and sell them accordingly. And if you can't sell them, they don't have value.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, yeah. So how are we going to fix this then?
Slowly.
Okay.
And with enough people that care. And I think it's going to be difficult, but we'll see. I'm hoping that Gordie, as the new president, can start to turn the ship.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have Gordie so enthusiastic. There's a 35.
I agree.
There's a 35-year-old guy that absolutely loves the NMRA, and the reason he loves it is because he was treated so well by people when he was just a kid. So I mean, it's just you
talked about one of the things that changed in our region. Again, I was the regional president for the allowable 4 years, and one of the things I did goes back 5 or 6 years ago. We stopped having contests at our regional convention.
Oh yeah?
No contests. Well, now, if you want your model judged for your own satisfaction or as part of the achievement program, we will have judges there. They will completely judge whatever models you bring, and they will give you the results. If you want to publicize those, you're perfectly fine. Go out and publicize it. We're not going to tell anybody. That's your private information. But you can get everything judged. But what we did do is we have a display room, much like the RPM does. And we encourage all the people we can to bring models for display and sharing. We even go to the point of cutting the registration $5 if you bring models that are not just an out-of-the-box thing, but something you've made that is real good. If you bring that, we're going to give you $5 for bringing it.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea. Why are you only telling me that an hour and 35 minutes in?
Well, we got to it. But here's the issue, and I would challenge everybody to look at the results even at the national level, because I tracked this for a while. Now, the last in-person convention where there was a national contest was a little different. But from prior to that, if you go back, you're going to find out that in most of the several years before that, 2 people earned 80% of the awards. 2.
Right.
What's the point? And we had the same exact situation years ago in our region. Almost all the awards went to the same people year after year after year. To be blunt about it, I don't need to stroke people's ego that much. I want people to have fun. I want them to feel good. I want them to learn. So we got rid of the contests.
Right. Well, that's a problem going forward because I'd like to have you back on the podcast, but Bruce, I think Bruce will more than happily back up the fact that my ego has to be stroked constantly.
Well, that's true, but then again, you're not entering many contests, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, I suppose. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? While you were talking, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but while you were talking, I was looking at this operations.com.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is spectacular. So is this just this operatingsessions.com? Is this just for your convention?
No.
Okay. This thing is unbelievable. Have you ever seen this, Bruce?
I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it because I'm at a point where not operating a lot right now, but it has been around for a year, a bit, maybe not that long, but it's set up as a repository and a way to for layout owners and guys putting on conventions and whatnot to tap into the local content out there, and they get people hooked up with the right place to go. But it is a spectacular thing, yeah.
What a spectacular website. I highly see. And have you ever looked at this, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. And then when you look at it, have you clicked through the pictures of, say, a particular layout?
A little bit, but not a lot.
A little bit, though.
Yep.
Did you find it interesting?
Absolutely.
I rest my case.
Yep.
I absolutely rest my case. You have to start a Facebook page. All right.
I'll let you know exactly when I do that.
All right. Okay.
I'm getting my new knee next Monday.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're getting a new knee.
And first one's this Monday, and the next one's April 4th. But in between, I'll see what I can do.
It'll give you something to do.
I like it.
So how's that? Are you apprehensive? Are you excited?
I'm excited because I'm just sick and tired of not being able to walk properly. It hurts a lot. And I watched my wife go through having both of hers done, and I won't kid you, the rehabilitation is excruciating. But if you don't do it, you might as well not have the surgery. And she did a fabulous job. So, I got something to live up to there.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes you just got to go to the hospital and put up with whatever they do to you.
Yeah.
Okay, Bruce, I think we got it covered, don't you?
I'm thinking so. It's been great.
Yeah, it's been great.
I really appreciate the opportunity, gentlemen. It was fun.
All right. So what's the last thing you want to tell everybody about Indy Junction 2022?
Just sign up as soon as you can. I think we've got a really, really special opportunity for you. I think we blended it with a very reasonable cost. You're going to be able to do almost anything in model railroading that you hope to do. And I really hope that the cross-blending between NMRA and RPM will open a lot of people's eyes. It'll teach a lot of the RPM people that NMRA isn't all bad, and it'll teach some of the NMRA people that there are a bunch of really great modelers out there that you don't know about.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And from some of did you get any blowback from any of the RPM people that are, dyed-in-the-wool RPM people?
No, the only thing that we had, and that happened on Cocoa Beach, that there were some people that thought that Chicagoland was canceled for 2022, and we were telling people just to go to the convention in Indianapolis. They didn't realize that we are doing everything we can to recreate the entire Chicagoland experience just in a different location. Okay. And I think they're quite excited about it when they understand that.
Yeah. You've done a very good job here, Scott.
Thank you. It was fun. Like I said, a lot of fun. You guys are great.
Yeah. Which one was your favorite?
No, I'm not going to tell you that. You'll get me in trouble.
Ooh, close, but no cigar in that answer.
Apparently he has a short memory. I just finished telling him my ego has to constantly be stroked.
Yeah.
No, you're both great. Come on, shouldn't be a contest. You're friends.
Well, that's just all showbiz. We just put that on there. All right. Bruce, can you give out our email address, please?
Yes, I would love to give out our email address. Let us know what you thought of our conversation. And if you got any thoughts on this convention and ideas about it, and let us know if you're planning on attending. And if you do attend, let us know for sure how it was. Send us an email. And if you got ideas on how to improve the NMRA, send us an email. We'll let Gordy and the others in Power know. So our email address is modelerslife, modelers with one L, modellerslife@gmail.com.
And if you, we have a website, amodelerslife.com. I'm sure you've been there a lot, eh, Scott?
I've been there.
Have you really?
Yes, sir, I have. You better believe it.
Okay. Oh, so you won't listen to the podcast, but you'll check out our website. So anyway,
I'm going to listen to your podcast too.
He was doing due diligence.
Okay, all right. So if you go to our website, amodelerslife.com, and you very quickly you scroll down and you'll see a picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state. And if you just go right onto that picture and click on that picture, as I'm going to do right now, boom, it automatically can send an email, and all you got to do is fill in the subject and your text and hit send, and you're off to the races. You don't even have to write down the email address. And then Scott, did you know that we also have the podcast comes out every Monday for free?
Yes.
But if for just 365 payments of 16 cents a day, you can join the Patreon channel, and then you can have a podcast every Monday and every Tuesday.
Cool.
And the Tuesday channel is more like, our buddy Kaylee Zhang refers to it as the Antics channel.
Gotcha.
We have a lot of fun over there. We goof it. If you ever come a guy across a modeler, if you ever see a guy walks up to you and he says to you, "I'm the modeler simply known as Kelly," don't spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice guy, great guy, but the bulb's a little dim, and I'm just kidding. Bruce Kelly is our very first ever super fan.
He is.
Very good.
Wonderful man. So then if you decide when you decide to join the Patreon, you'll enjoy that. And then also, and when you're driving around in your car, what are you listening to?
Not much.
Exactly.
A little bit of news.
See, you could be listening to us.
Yeah, especially with a new car, I can get everything through Apple Play, so I can do that.
Okay, you just bought some new wheels?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
BMW X7.
Oh,
ooh, nice.
That's very nice.
I had an X5, and it was too small. I'm 6'7".
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And when I was in the X5, if I put the seat back so I was comfortable, no one could sit behind me. And so we couldn't take anybody. And as I said some time ago, we quarantined with two other couples. One's my fraternity brother, and the other one's a model railroad friend with their wife. So there's 6 of us. And my friend always took everybody because he has a van. Well, that's not always fair. So I finally just got fed up with it. And the X7, I can put 6 people in that very, very comfortably, even in the third row. And so now I can do my share of driving.
Okay. So you guys all stayed in the same house, did you?
We live within, one's 100 yards one way from the other's 100 yards from the other way. And we agreed at the very start of COVID exactly what the requirements were. And we have been absolutely consistently following those agreements. And if anybody, for instance, and especially the first year or so, had to, for instance, my fraternity brother and his wife, they had a grandson that was being, going to church thing. And so they went to that. Well, they came back, they went home and stayed in their house for 2 weeks, and we didn't see them for 2 weeks. They quarantined.
Wow.
And that's the deal. And we've been absolutely like that right up to now.
And what's this COVID thing you're speaking of?
Yeah. Don't I wish?
Okay, and let's see, where else do I got to talk about, Bruce? Oh, yeah.
Patreon also has a Wednesday night event.
Yeah, Patreon has a Wednesday night chat, which we didn't do tonight because we're chatting to Scott. Yes. So every Wednesday, all the Patreon folks get together and have a Zoom chat, and it's great fun because 40 or 50 people pass through that chat room, and they talk about AML and all sorts of other subjects. Cool. And also, Scott, I know you're going to want to get a Modeler's Life T-shirt now.
I can do that.
Yeah. So if you just go to Midwest Model Railroad, and their URL is midwestmodelrr.com, and you scroll across the navigation bar all the way to the right and click on AML, boom, you're in a wonderland of AML merchandise, hats, hoodies, mugs. Our buddy Don Iris, the average Don, he just got his hat. Well, you know what happened in Cocoa Beach, Bruce?
No.
He kept telling me that it took him a month to get the hat. And finally I looked at him and I said, "What do you think? I'm making them or something?"
You're not cranking on your garage still, are you?
Yeah.
I thought you outsourced long ago.
And I'm like, it's a very nice hat, too. So anyways, yeah, you can get all kinds of merchandise, AML merchandise there at the old Midwest Model. Where do you buy most of your model railroad supplies?
So whenever I can, I go to the local hobby shop.
Okay.
If I need, for instance, Walther diesels or anything like that, there is a gentleman who runs the chain department, and he's been great to work with, and they're very good prices. So I try the best I can to support the local hobby shop. I buy all my.
What's the name of your local hobby shop?
Nankin Hobby, Nankin, Nankin Hobby. And
is that north of Detroit?
There are 4 of them. There's one in Farmington, which is on the north side. There's one in Westland, which is kind of the west side of Detroit. There is one in Ypsi, which is kind of near Ann Arbor. And there's one in Southgate, which is way downriver, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
It makes sense to me.
So they're doing a good job. And like I said, I try to do that. Obviously, a fair amount of stuff online, but no more than I have to.
Have you ever been to, have you ever operated the Doug Tagsol's layout?
Oh, yeah.
Well, next time you see him, will you tell him you think I'm a great guy?
I will.
Somehow
and if you go into Model Railroad Planning 2022 just came out
right
a couple days ago. If you go in there about 2/3 of the way through, you will see an article I wrote on the Denver and Durango and Silverton Railroad that he built in the business basement years ago and sold and moved.
Yes.
And the article is all about moving it to its new house and where it is and what happened to it.
You wrote an article that's just been published in Model Railroad. When were you going to tell us that?
I don't know. Yeah, it was just published in that.
You know what? In the last hour and 50 minutes, I've gone from, hey, this guy, Scott guy's not a bad guy, to now you're just kind of irritating me. I think we got it all, eh, Bruce?
I think so.
All right, so...
we'll find out now.
Yeah. Things are going to take a nasty turn now. We got a job for you, Scott.
Okay.
At the appropriate moment, you have to say "Happy Rails" to you.
Okay.
There's no singing. There's no interpretation. there's no putting your own swing on it.
Nope.
It's just simply with enthusiasm. You got to say "Happy Rails" to you.
I think I could do that.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
You're going to give me a signal or what?
Oh, yeah, you'll know. You'll know.
You'll know.
Okay.
Pay attention. It'll be obvious.
Yeah, just pay attention and it'll be obvious.
What are you got, 70% on this?
Yeah. I think I'm around there.
All right.
Well, Scott, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy Rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Wow, that was
nicely done.
Yeah, you did a good job on that. That's it, Scott. We're done.
Thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun.